As I said, we have a very busy schedule, many different interventions and presentations. So I'm going to hand over to Peter Piscises for a welcome and introduction. Peter, the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So I'm Peter Piscises. I'm in charge of the IOC project office for IODE in Ostende, Belgium. So let me first give you a little introduction then for those who are not familiar with IODE. So IODE was established in 1961, and you may know that IOC was established in 1960. So it's almost immediately. And in fact, IOC was established partly because of all the data that came out of the International Geophysical Year at the end of the 1950s. And the objectives of IODE in 1961 were what you see here on the screen, to enhance marine research, exploitation, and development by facilitating the exchange of oceanographic data and information between participating member states and by meeting the needs of users for data and information products. And those objectives are still the same today. Now, what does IODE look like today? In fact, it has transformed a bit in 2023. And we now have three major program components. The first one is ODS, which is a federated digital ecosystem. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. We have OBIS, Ocean Biodiversity Information System, and we have the Ocean Teacher Global Academy, which is our federated training ecosystem. As you see under ODIS, we have quite a number of other activities that range from World Ocean Database all the way to Quality Management Framework. In OBIS, we also have quite a number of projects. And under OTGA, we now have a network of 17 regional and specialized training centers, but I'll say a bit more about that. This is our team. We are about 16 people, 8 in Ostende, and then others spread around the world. We also have our two IODE committee co-chairs, Lotta Veerberg and Paula Sierra. Lotta from Scandinavia, let's say, and Paula from the Caribbean, Latin America. And in addition to that, we of course have hundreds of experts working in the data centers around the world. We have about 100 national oceanographic data centers now, and also associate data units and associate information units. So Ocean Info Hub and Ocean Data and Information System. The mission of that is to build a sustainable, interoperable, and inclusive digital ecosystem for all ocean stakeholders. I like to call it now the Internet of Ocean Data. The idea is that with relatively simple technology, we are able to interconnect the data centers around the world to this ecosystem, whereby they can share their own data and they can discover and access the data held by other data systems part of this network. OBIS, Ocean Biodiversity Information System, aims to be the most comprehensive gateway to the world's ocean biodiversity and biogeographic data and information required to address pressing coastal and world ocean concerns. For example, what will be the impact of climate change on biodiversity in various parts of the world? How will species move to other parts of the ocean? And then last but not least, Ocean Teacher Global Academy. There, IODE, in fact, has a long history of providing training to experts in its participating countries, because there's no university class that you can go to acquire the expertise to manage data. And mostly in curricula in university, data management is not included. So there has always been an activity within IODE to organize training courses, mostly on an ad hoc basis in the past. And we have evolved towards a quite comprehensive network now of, and you see it here, 17 regional and specialized training centers around the world that provide training either online or hybrid, blended, or in-person training. And the training, while it started just for focusing on the IODE mandate, it now goes across the entire IOC value chain. It's all the way from ocean observing through data management through to product and service development. So that's a bit in a nutshell what IODE is all about. And so let me come back. Yeah. And so that is also a little bit the reason why IODE, the IOC Project Office for IODE, is now hosting the DCO for data sharing, because we hope that the expertise available within all these IODE activities and also within the over 100 data centers around the world can assist Decade Actions with their data management tasks, and also maybe provide some training and other capacity development related to that. So I think that's all for my introduction, Jan Bart.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, and I think it's a great relationship and the hosting of the DCO on data sharing by IODE. And this webinar, and hopefully many more to follow, is a way to make more visible some of the IODE program components and activities and opportunities for people to learn, to build capacity, but also services that they can use. So it's greatly appreciated. And I think a perfect bridge towards our next speaker, which is Louis de Margne, Marine Knowledge Management Officer at IOC UNESCO, part of the Decade Coordination Unit. And Louis will give us an update on the data, the Decade's data and information strategy and its implementation, and how that's relevant to everyone working in the Decade. Please.
Oh. All right, thank you very much, Jan Bart, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Louis de Margne, and I'm with the Decade Coordination Unit, sitting in the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you some updates on the Ocean Decade with a specific focus on data and information, and how with your support we can really unlock greater potential from the Ocean Decade and beyond. So achieving the Ocean Decade vision of the science we need for the ocean we want, and overcoming the challenges identified within the Ocean Decade, requires an enabling environment for distributed ocean digital, for a distributed ocean digital ecosystem that connects across disciplines, across geographic boundaries, right? Including, we need the frameworks, the infrastructure, the people, the tools, the resources, and so on to make that happen. So just a little bit of quick background. As many of you are aware, the Ocean Decade was established 3 years ago now, and to meet the 10 decade challenges that you see on the screen now, in order to reverse the cycle of decline in the ocean's health, right? And also to find solutions for the sustainable development of our ocean resources. And also to ensure we develop a truly sustainable blue economy, right? So the Ocean Decade really represents an opportunity to lift and transform the way we do ocean science, but particularly how we manage, share, use data, and how we deliver the information and the knowledge we extract from that data to address these ocean challenges. So from the beginning, it was identified in the Ocean Decade implementation plan that digitizing, accessing, managing, and using ocean-related data and information will be cornerstones of the success of the Ocean Decade. This is written in the implementation plan, right? And particularly if we focus on challenges 7 and 8, they're all about data. It's collecting, it's observing, and sharing those observations and data, and developing the digital representation of the ocean to assist with decision making. So those 2 key challenges are essential because they underpin all of the other challenges that we have in the decade. Right. So now, just a little bit of insight into our philosophy before we go into the data strategy. The goal of the decade really is to develop sustainable solutions, right? End user applications and solutions. These solutions involve delivering knowledge and information to decision makers at the right time and in the right form for that information to be consumed and acted upon, right? So for these solutions to work, we actually need an infrastructure behind those applications to make sure that from the observations to the data collection to the management sharing, then the analytics, the modeling, the prediction, and then the delivery of that information to the end user. So it's a whole value chain there, And we need to look at every one of those components if we are to be successful. And so with every endorsed program or every endorsed decade project, we need to make sure that we don't develop these many value chains in isolation, right? And how do we interconnect all of these programs and projects together? How do we integrate, make all of that data interoperable? But also beyond the Ocean Decade, how can we rely on existing data platforms, existing data sources, and connect that and manage that in a coordinated way, so that we can make it easier for users to find the data, to access it, to use it. So this is important enough that we really needed a focused and coordinated approach from observations upstream all the way along that value chain to the end user. And this is why we set up these decade coordination offices and collaborative centers that Jan Bart will talk more about in his presentation. So during 2022 and also the beginning of 2023, the Data Coordination Group, which was set up within the framework of the Ocean Decade, and it's a group of 24 global data experts from all around the world, worked to develop a strategy and to how to manage data and information within the decade. This was published in April 2023, and I've put up a QR code there for you all to download the executive summary of that. Actually, you can download the full document and the executive summary. The executive summary has been translated into multiple different languages. And the main, and we've got an overarching vision to reach by 2030, which is to develop a trusted, or to facilitate the development of a trusted, inclusive and interconnected ocean data and information ecosystem that is actively used for decision-making to support sustainable ocean management. So it's really not about building something new from scratch. On the contrary, it's really to relying and leveraging what already exists today in terms of data platforms, data sources, data repositories, but also other data strategies that are out there, and building that all together to build this interconnected, this federated and globally distributed data and information ecosystem. And we have 5 strategic objectives. Objective number 1 is all about developing that ocean digital ecosystem that encourages and facilitates the sharing of data and information. And it's really about how can we develop those specifications and the resources needed to establish this federated ocean data system that ultimately allows users to easily find, use, and also contribute ocean data and information. But this will include also opportunities and incentives to share their data, knowledge, and information. But also, how do we address major gaps in many of the ocean data types, variables, both spatially and temporally? That must, those data gaps that must be addressed if we are to achieve these challenges. Excuse me. So, objective number 2 is about discovery, improving that discovery and usability across the ecosystem. So, with the growing number of data and information sources available today, it really remains difficult to discover and use these data to develop solutions and information and inform decision making. So, as expressed in the FAIR principles, which underpin this strategy, once data are available and accessible online, steps must be taken to make them easily discoverable and readily usable. And so this objective number 2 focuses on that. With objective number 3 is all about how we can build trust in the data and information. So unless there is trust in the data and information that we share, as well as the trust in the entire data value chain and its related infrastructure, it will be difficult to convince people to fully engage in this and contribute to this digital ecosystem. So practices must be implemented to ensure the quality and provenance of those digital resources that users rely upon are known, as well as mechanisms to ensure proper attribution. And similarly, systems and infrastructure to ensure the long-term archival of that data and information software also must be clear, must be implemented, and as well as clear data policies and terms of use, right? This is all about this objective 3 of building trust. Then we have objective number 4, about prioritizing, let's say, digital solutions that support decision making, right? That's the other aspect of the ocean decades. It's not just about the sites, it's about those digital solutions. So, valuable ocean data and derived insights often do not reach those that need them in a form that they can understand and act upon. So through the co-design of these digital solutions, which is a core principle of the ocean decade, we increase the likelihood that these insights and data products and services will be relied on and acted on. And then last but not least is the 5th one, which is more people-oriented, right? If we are going to build all this ecosystem, contribute to it, share data, make it more accessible, we also need the people to keep that, to maintain that system, make it continuously used. And so we need to expand, empower, and mobilize global communities to advance and maintain the ocean digital ecosystem. So this relates to the successful implementation of this strategy really depends on a thriving human community that is, let's say, digitally literate, that understands the value of data management, data sharing, and also understand the importance of co-design of ocean solutions. Right? So the purpose of this objective in the short term is really to build awareness, skills, and capacities to drive alignment with the strategy as we roll it out. And then the long term is more to affect an enduring culture change towards a digitally fluent ocean community, and one that readily and openly shares their data, insights, and understandings. So that's the overarching strategy. How we're going to implement it? Well, what we've started to do now is through, so the data coordination group was responsible for developing this strategy, the vision, and the strategic objectives. We now have another group that reports to this data coordination group, and that is currently focusing on developing an action plan. What are the key priority actions that we need to put in place in order to start moving towards this strategic vision and these strategic objectives? And this is all part of a connected network of entities and organizations within the decade, right? The coordination offices and collaborative centers that I talked about will also be key in helping us to implement this strategy and the recommendations in the action plan, because they are helping to coordinate a lot of their activity within the decade endorsed programs and projects. And we also have links towards industry with the corporate data group. This one more focused perhaps on helping us to fill those data gaps that we were talking about. We know that industry collects a huge amount of data for their own operations. How can we make at least part of that publicly available for the benefit of the scientific work that we're trying, the solutions we're trying to develop within the framework of the decade? So that's a little bit let's say the network that we have to implement the strategy. The action plan is currently being developed, and we will be presenting initial results, or let's say actions to be taken at the Ocean Decade Conference in Barcelona in April. And after that, there will be a period of review and consultations around the action plan to see to make sure that we get as much feedback as we can from the global ocean community on that. And I'll finish with this one, which is also the link to currently the Vision 2030 process, which is currently responsible for the idea there is to, now that 3 years have gone by, is to take stock of where we are today in each of those 10 challenges, and also to try to perhaps narrow the focus a little bit more and the ambition a little bit more towards something that is very concrete and very tangible result at the end of 2020. So there's 10 white papers that are now out for consultation, and I will put the link in the chat if you're interested in reviewing and providing feedback to any or all of these 10 white papers. But I wanted to point it out because out of that exercise, we will also have some clearer information on some of the priority data sets that will be required to meet those ambitions, to meet those desired outcomes for 2030. And then combining that with the action plan and our work with the corporate data group, we will be in a good position to start addressing those data and information gaps. So that's all. Thank you again for the opportunity, Jan Bart, and the whole team there at the DCO, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. So now, of course, I have great pleasure to introduce to you Jan Bart Kallewaard, who is the head of the DCO for data sharing. In fact, he works together with Una McNeil, who is also online with us. And okay, the word is back to Jan Bart.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, it's a great pleasure to present a little bit the work of the DCO and what we've been doing over the last 6 months, and a forward look as well, what's already in place and what we hope to achieve going forward. And this shows how well we are already coordinated between the different coordinating bodies at the DCU. As I showed the same slide as Louis just showed before, so I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but go straight into the coordination offices and their role, because the DCOs are important in supporting the decade actions, achieving their mission and objectives towards the 10-decade challenges. So the DCOs will work with each other to support and coordinate these decade actions that are assigned to them in the various components of the data flow and ocean digital ecosystems that we need, and that will be critical, of course, in achieving the decade vision. The number of functions that are similar across these DCOs to coordinate, facilitate, and engage with the stakeholder communities, supporting links between the decade actions, liaising with other DCOs. So we have regular meetings with the DCO on ocean observing, the DCC on ocean prediction, which is hosted by Mercator Ocean. And we try to align because obviously we're part of the same digital ecosystem that we're trying to shape towards realizing the data and information strategy, which Louis showed earlier. We also have a role to help the DCU with drafting decade calls for actions to highlight where there are gaps, maybe priorities that need to be filled. We work with, and that's important, our decade actions. We have a number of programs that are assigned to us that we work a bit closer with. And of course, to encourage the development of technical and scientific capacities that need to support the decade actions. Also, communication, public awareness, mobilization of resources, monitoring, reporting are important parts of our role. And obviously, for the DCO, ocean observing, data sharing, and ocean prediction, we have a very important role to play and encourage best practices and fair data principles adoption across all of the decade efforts. So more specifically then, in relation to the Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing, our main role is to steer the data sharing component of the digital ecosystem, engaging with stakeholder communities, facilitating information flow, and providing data sharing guidance. Supporting decade actions is very important also to try and avoid duplication of effort and make sure that the capacities and expertise that exist in one can be made available to the others, and that there's a mutual support. And that's also something that we want to promote through the community of practice on data sharing, and we'll say a few words about that later. Also important to mobilize the capacities that already exist with IODE in particular on developing the data literacy and capacity, but also making sure that that's equitably developed among the decade actors in different geographic regions, help to identify and address particular data and infrastructure gaps and needs. So if you look at how that's organized, I'm not going to dwell upon that too long, but we are working very closely with the two the sister DCO and DCC. We report to the Decade Coordination Unit, and we, in our case, are hosted by IODE. The Ocean Observing DCO is hosted by Goose. So who are we? I think Peter already introduced me and Una, but we also have support from Decade implementing partners, Miao Sun, who is with us today, who is a voluntary support from the National Marine Data and Information Service of China, and David Tsang, who is supporting from the European Marine Observation and Data Network Secretariat, which is also a DIP, a Decade implementing partner. We started in June last year with a limited capacity, with the initial work plan of 11 months. Shared between myself and Una, we are only one full time. So we are also trying to gather support and momentum to grow the secretariat to full fruition. Okay, so what were the first year priorities? Obviously, establishing the DCO, the work plan, the staffing, the reporting, the procedures to have a solid ground for its operation. That's the more bureaucratic and boring part. More interesting part, the more important part that we're coming to now is the stakeholder engagement and support at 3 levels. The Decade coordinating bodies that really need to be the source and the binding factor between all of these actors. And that's in place. The Decade actions here, that's one of our core missions, to support the data sharing capacities and practices and provide also the necessary tools to do so. Wider stakeholders to help us develop a multi-year plan for the coming 2-3 years. We are or have been dedicating quite some time as well to try and secure funding for the DCO, but also for our programs that are in need of resources. So resource mobilization will be a very important role going forward in support of all Decade actors, because a lot of the efforts are voluntary. We know that. We can help with value propositions, with making pitches, so that everybody can try and tap into the resources that hopefully the Decade unlocks. Communication, raising visibility and awareness, of course, not only for the DCO, but mainly for the actions and the success stories and mobilizing resources. Now, if we look at the year 2-3 priorities, we'll focus more and more on this block 2, stakeholder engagement. We'll try to expand the secretariat, ideally up to 4 full-time equivalents. We are going to further develop the website as an information sharing platform, but also to provide guidance. We have a data toolkit that we have been preparing, also to advertise capacity building and training opportunities in a virtual data help desk. All of those tasks jointly aim, of course, and that's the focus of the DCO, to implement the data information strategy and to address challenge 8, which is creating a digital representation of the ocean, which Louis mentioned before as a very important underpinning challenge. So in terms of stakeholder engagement, I mentioned the Data Resource Guidance Toolkit. We have a first version, which is available. And obviously, we hope that this is a living toolkit that can be developed with the help of all of you, indicating where you need more resources and information and guidance, so that we can make it as useful as possible. Same here, we have been developing a concept and an idea that we'll launch today, actually, is a virtual data help desk that will be channeled through the website, but also will be active at events. And we'll be present at the Barcelona conference, the Decade conference in April, where we'll have a data booth, where we will also present the data help desk as a function. We have 4 primary attached programs, and I'm very happy that all of them have agreed to speak a bit about their remit and how they plan to move forward in the coming years, but also how they can support the Decade actions and how they add value in this space. We also have a national Decade committee and 3 Decade implementing partners, which are associated with us. I'm not going to go too much into detail because we have interventions from representatives of all four major programs, the World Ocean Database Program, Ocean Data 2030, GeoTraces, and also the digital innovation hand in hand with fisheries and ecosystem scientific monitoring. Now, this is a scoop because today we are actually launching the website of the Decade Coordination Office. Very proud to do so. We've been working quite hard behind the scenes to get it up and running. It looks very nice. I think it's a very good start. It has some basic information about who we are and what we do. But mainly, you will see that in the upper right corner, you see the link, the URL, but also the QR code. You have the data sharing toolkit, the data help desk function, and you have also a link to the join the community of practice. And obviously, we will be sharing news and events also through this channel. So this is what the Decade Data Resources and Guidance Toolkit looks like. It's an interactive page on the website. You also have a PDF download function. It's a first version, so we very much would appreciate that you have a closer look, see if it corresponds to your needs, see what is missing, and provide us feedback so that we can populate and grow it further. It has components related to what are the requirements and guidance for data and information management in the decade. Some general data management guidance, what are some of the training opportunities that exist, some good case studies and examples. And again, here, if you have good case studies or examples on lessons learned in developing a data management plan, adopting a data policy, challenges that you overcame in developing a data repository, whatever you think is relevant, please send it to us and we will be happy to investigate and put it as a case study or example. Also important, not only how to share data, but also where you can find data. It's not always very clear, I think, to everyone where you can find the data and information resources you need. And there are good tools already in development that you can help to contribute to, but also that you can use. So that's going to be important. The help desk. So what we have in mind is to have some sort of a platform where Decade Actions users can seek answers to specific technical questions, more technical questions on data management related aspects. And that we have a pool of dedicated data experts that are subject matter experts, can be disciplinary, can be more on the ICT infrastructure side. So we're developing a pool of experts that are going to look at these questions and try to formulate an appropriate answer. So it's a collaborative platform. Voila, it's also a tool where we can try to understand a little bit what are the main problems that people are facing so that we can steer our effort mostly in that direction. You see on the right-hand side of the screen, you have a button to ask a question, and there's a small form. But you can also volunteer to become an expert. And there is terms of reference that we published that you can have a look at. If you're interested, we'll be very keen. The community of practice that I mentioned, this is something that's on the Ocean Data Network. You have to be in action at this point to be admitted. We're trying to open that up a little bit broader so that also the experts can participate and have the ability to connect, exchange, and knowledge related to ocean data sharing. So this is something that we also very much would like to promote. So go and have a look. And if you're a Decade Action, please sign up and take part. We are also planning a survey in the coming weeks to launch to all Decade Actions to understand a little bit better what are your challenges, to identify where we can provide more support. We're very broad, encompassing several aspects of ocean data sharing, data collection, accessibility, interoperability, etc. Now, I wanted to also briefly update you on something that we put quite a lot of effort in with the DCO, as we were asked to support the Vision 2030 process, which Louis already mentioned. So it's really the ambition setting process of the decade, where we try to define a bit more concretely what success would look like by 2030 for each of the individual challenges. And we were assigned to support very logically challenge 8, creating a digital representation of the ocean. I'm not going to go too much into detail about the process. Louis touched upon that. So we have 10 working groups, experts from many different countries. Each working group has 2 co-chairs, and a lot of effort has gone into this also over the last 6 months to develop first 0 draft white papers for each of the challenges, which are now open for review. They will be reviewed. There will be a public webinar where you can have your say. These 0 drafts will be reviewed and ultimately presented at the Barcelona conference in the beginning of April, where there will be dedicated sessions where we can discuss further, fine-tune and tweak so that everybody's on board and aligned around these priorities. So for working group 8, this is all about developing a comprehensive digital representation of the ocean, but it's much wider than that. It's creating that includes a dynamic ocean map, providing free and open access to data and information on the past, current, and future state of the ocean. So maybe just to give you a quick flavor of the status of thinking of this expert group, I think early on the group decided to, much in line with what Louis said, it's a very cross-cutting challenge that supports all other decade challenges. So basically all of the other challenges or the actions, the scientific community working on resolving these are the users, and they have very different backgrounds, capacities, and data management skills. So in fact, it's very broad. All of them do need easy access to ocean data and information, tools and services for accessing and sharing data information and knowledge. So that's common to all. We split it in 2 parts. First of all, the digital content needs, and secondly, the services that needs to support these actors. In terms of the services, Global Ocean Data Discovery and Access Service was put forward as an important goal that needs to be operational. And Peter already mentioned Ocean Data Hub, Ocean Info Hub, and Ocean Data Information Service. These are very important tools that can contribute to developing this service. There's also a call to create a digital atlas of the ocean. There are various atlases existing, but a comprehensive digital atlas of the ocean is yet not there, and would be an important goal to put forward, and perhaps an action or a program to be developed. Marine knowledge exchange mechanisms, it's not only about data, but also about information, knowledge that needs to be exchanged and stored, outputs of all of these decade actions. A help desk service that's already put in place, so that's good. The capacity developing, sharing, and training facilities, and here there are existing initiatives that can obviously play an important role, such as the Ocean Teacher Growth Academy. In terms of content, I think the whole idea is that the ultimate goal is to develop a comprehensive digital representation of the ocean, but at the same time, we by 2030, what the group feels is realistic is to create an enabling environment that allows people to find and share and develop these digital representations and digital twin applications that gradually build up to this comprehensive overview. And to start here by 2030 to focus on a set of priority data products and the underpinning data needed, and then use the other challenges also as a little bit of a driver to pull in those data and fill those gaps. But also to have a number of local case studies that that stress test the digital ecosystem, if you like, to see if it's really adapted to everybody's needs. So, as I mentioned, the review process is ongoing. There is a QR code here if you want to participate. You can download all of the white papers and participate in the survey to share your views. Okay, I think I've spoken a lot about what we can do for you, but there is also obviously something that you can do for us. There are many different ways to support. This is just part of the list. But there are ways that you can easily support on a light or limited effort in terms of nominating experts to contribute to the virtual data help desk. Use the resource toolkit, provide us feedback. If you're interested in providing trainings, but obviously also to participate in the data sharing community of practice, that would be very much appreciated. Also, if you know in your institute or your organization or network that there are possibilities to make secondments to some of these big programs or to the DCO itself, I think we are very open to discuss this. Okay, I think from my side, that's the main thing. There are two important events that we are also going to participate. It's this week, the Indian Ocean Conference. And then obviously we hope to see you in Barcelona. If you're joining, please come and find us at the data booth. And maybe to end and as a bridge towards the next talk, in some of the call to actions, you will see that there is some guidance and requirements also in terms of data management and sharing under the decade. And I think it's important to highlight and flag this, that we need to try and be consistent with the IOC oceanographic data and exchange policy, and work to encourage best practices, making your data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable as much as possible. And I think Greg Reed will say a little bit more about IODE's practices and also data management plans and policies. So I think on that note, I would like to thank you for your attention. Okay. Good.
Thank you for all the presentation and all the information shared. We certainly will have to go through it all and find the points where we can cooperate and learn more and share our data also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see, Louis, you have your hand up. Maybe you can quickly intervene before we...
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Very quickly, excuse me, just to say that I'm sitting here and I just wanted to say what an amazing job you and Una and Debbie and Sun Miao have done to get us this far in such a short amount of time. So really well done to you all, and thanks very much for all the effort put in. Just wanted to say that and recognize that.
Thanks. It's the team. Yeah. Great. Okay, fantastic. So, Debbie, are we ready to show the video? Because unfortunately, Greg could not be with us. He's in a time zone which does not allow in any reasonable condition to participate. So we're very grateful that he managed to provide a video contribution. So let's go.
Can you see the screen now?
You can see the screen.
Hello, my name is Greg Reed, and today I'll talk about ocean data management and sharing and the recommended practices and training opportunities. We all recognise the importance of ocean data. Ocean data is essential for the efficient acquisition, integration and use of ocean observations for a wide variety of purposes, including the prediction of weather and climate, the operational forecasting of the marine environment, the mitigation of human-induced changes in the marine and coastal environment, as well as for the advancement of scientific understanding that makes this possible. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO is the United Nations body responsible for supporting ocean science, observations and data exchange and services. The IOC supports its 150 member states to build their scientific and institutional capacity in order to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The IOC is also responsible for coordinating the implementation of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. The IOC promotes ocean data and information sharing through its International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange Program. The IODE operates through a network of over 100 data centres. These are National Oceanographic Data Centres, Associate Data Units and Associate Information Units. The IODE's purpose is to enhance marine research, exploitation and development by facilitating the exchange of oceanographic data and information between member states, and by meeting the needs of users of data and information products. The IODE also implements the IOC data policy that promotes open and free access to data. The IODE Global Network includes national oceanographic data centres, which are centres which have been officially designated by an IOC member state as an NODC. Then there's associate data units, and this is where any project, program, or organization that manages and shares ocean data can be recognized by IODE. Then there's the associate information units, and this is where any project, program, or organization that carries out marine information management functions or provides marine information services and products can be recognized by IODE. And you can find out more information about the IODE network from these links. The ISC supports the timely, open and unrestricted international sharing of ocean metadata, data and products. The ISC Assembly in 2023 adopted the new ISC data policy and terms of use, which is a revision of the original policy adopted in 2003. In addition to adopting the policy, the Assembly also decided to develop guidelines for the development of detailed data and metadata sharing by all IOC programs and projects. The policy recommends that member states and their ocean practitioners share their data, while also recommending the use of data licenses to ensure that the work of the scientists and data provider is recognized. The IOC has a strategic plan for ocean data and information management, and this describes the implementation of interoperable data and information management practices. The vision of the IOC strategic plan is to achieve a comprehensive and integrated ocean data and information system serving the broad and diverse needs of IOC member states for management, policy making, and scientific use. The strategic plan describes the implementation of functional and interoperable data management practices and frameworks to ensure data availability and guides all IOC programs to effectively share and manage their data and information in a coordinated way based on widely agreed practices to assist in fulfilling the IOC objectives and also those of the Ocean Decade. Data management activities require coordination and planning, not only during the data acquisition phase, but also the subsequent assembly and curation of the data. A data management plan is a formal document outlining how research data will be managed, stored, documented, and secured throughout a research project, as well as planning what will happen to the data after the completion of the project. The data management plan is intended to provide descriptive details of the data, the processes, the decisions, as well as identifying roles and responsibilities. This also includes a long-term data sharing and preservation plan to ensure data are publicly accessible beyond the life of the project. A data management plan is often a requirement of funding agencies. The IODE encourages the use of national oceanographic data centers or associate data units or other IOC programs related to data centers to share metadata and data using the IOC Ocean Data and Information System. The IODE has established a quality management framework. The QMF provides the overall strategy, advice, and guidance for national oceanographic data centers and associate data units to design and implement quality management systems for the successful delivery of ocean data products and services. The IODE QMF promotes accreditation of national oceanographic data centers and associate data units according to agreed criteria. The IODE accreditation is a process where data centers provide evidence that they are sustainable and trustworthy. To obtain and maintain accreditation, NODCs and ADUs need to fulfill a minimum set of requirements to ensure compliance with IODE standards and to establish a mechanism to regularly monitor and assess the quality of data and services. Adherence to agreed standards and the requirements of the IOC data policy and terms of use must be met and sustained. Some of the benefits of accreditation of data centers include helping data communities to improve quality and transparency of processes. It increases awareness of and compliance with established standards, and it allows data centers to demonstrate to users and funders that an independent authority has evaluated them and endorsed their trustworthiness. It also builds stakeholder confidence and enhances the reputation of the repository. I would now like to briefly discuss some training opportunities for ocean data management and sharing. The Ocean Teacher Global Academy is the e-learning platform hosted at the UNESCO IOC Project Office for IODE. The OTGA supports a global network of 17 regional training centres and specialised training centres, which play a major role by enabling training in topics that are relevant to the IOC and its activities. The Ocean Teacher Global Academy supports a global training hub to deliver courses on-site, online, and through blended learning. The OTGA e-learning platform is jointly shared by the RTCs and STCs, and training is delivered in the languages that are relevant to the regions, that is English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. OTGA provides education and training for managers and researchers to enhance their skills and expertise to manage and reuse ocean data, and provides open educational resources for online learning. OTGA makes its quality training resources openly available so that they can be reused by other trainers, and offers courses and modules related to the management and stewardship of ocean data. The UNESCO IOC Project Office for IODE, host of the OTGA, is an ISO certified learning services provider, and all OTGA content is covered by Creative Commons license. OTGA also collaborates with other organisations, from UN agencies to academia and NGOs, to jointly deliver training courses and to host and facilitate courses. The Ocean Teacher Global Academy supports the capacity development activities of the UN Decade by partnering with other UN organisations and other ocean-related programs and initiatives. OTGA is an endorsed UN Ocean Decade action, building capacity and accelerated technology transfer for the Ocean Decade. OTGA can assist in acquiring the necessary capacity to equitably participate in and benefit from the Decade actions and related products and services. OTGA also contributes to the UN Sustainable Development Goals by facilitating training activities focusing on the conservation and sustainable management of the ocean and marine resources. OTGA is contributing to the needs of the Ocean Decade through targeted training courses delivered by its network of regional and specialised training centres. Some of these courses include Research Data Management with a regional focus, Data Stewardship in the Decade of Ocean Science, Marine Spatial Planning, Quality Management, Discovery and Use of Ocean Data and Products, Statistical Tools for Data Analysis, and many more. I would like to mention one OTGA course which provides training opportunities for ocean data management and sharing, and this is the Ocean Data Management 2024 course. This online, fully self-paced training course provides a comprehensive introduction to the management of marine data, including the guiding principles of data management and the typical responsibilities for data managers, data stewards, and scientists. As it is a self-paced course, learners can progress through the course material at their own speed and on their own schedule. The Ocean Data Management 2024 self-paced course introduces several aspects related to the management of marine data, including metadata, quality control, data policy, data sharing and publishing, and data management plans. The course modules detail each phase of the research data lifecycle, which are the planning phase, data acquisition, process and analysing phase, preserving data, sharing data, and finally reusing data. This course is open from the 1st of February until the 30th of April, and if you're interested, you can enrol on the Ocean Teacher e-learning platform. This is the end of my presentation, so I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Greg. Unfortunately, Greg could not be with us, but it was a great presentation and also a perfect lead on to another IODE expert and manager is Carol Mazuko. Thanks for being with us. I don't know if Greg has already mentioned a lot about OTGA and training, but you are responsible, so it's fantastic to have you with us. And maybe you want to complement and share a few reflections from your side, Carol.
Thanks, Young Bart. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Greg always makes my life easier. So I just have 2 slides. I won't repeat already what he have told. I just want to stress out a little bit about the needs and the gaps and an invitation for the community to collaborate. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I think you can see. Let me just put presentation mode. Can you see it? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. To start, my name is Ana Carolina Mazzucco. As mentioned before by Peter and Jan Bart, I work together with our colleagues in Ostende, and I am the training coordinator. So I co-manage the Ocean Teacher Global Academy with Greg, that has just presented before me, and also assist Johanna with other capacity development activities within the IOC. So the aim of my 2 slides is just to stress about the training needs, the legacy, and the opportunities ahead in terms of ocean data. Okay, so ocean data has always been one of the ugly ducks of the ocean sciences. So if you would ask any professional or people that were studying to become an ocean science, you're going to ask, oh, what do you want to study? I want to study whales, or I would like to study satellite remote sensing, but you would never listen anyone saying, oh, I want to be a data expert. But in the past years, with all the data revolution and digitalization, the community has agreed, and the professionals know now that that we need more experts, and we need to increase enormously the human capacity in ocean data. And this is not just to manage the data, but also for people to be able to understand and to share the data that they are generating. So there is this historical gap, but there's also a geographical gap in expertise and in human capacity for us to overcome. So if we look in all the data implementation strategy objectives, we would see that we need people. We need data experts, and we need digital literate professionals. IOC has run several assessments to identify these gaps and the needs across the regions. And they go from all over all the different topics. So technology, instrumentation, and maintenance of data networks. Also how to use and share the data, and then the different topics in ocean observing. So we have mapped these across the regions. And now it's the time also for the entire ocean community to work together to develop training focus on those needs. I won't talk about the Ocean Teacher Global Academy because Greg just mentioned perfectly, but just to reinforce the message. So even that before data was recognized and as a key topic to achieve sustainability and also blue economy, IODE has always worked on generating training material covering ocean data, and partner with an amazing community, global community of several experts, and also the regional and specialized training center and other partners. So OTJ has delivered in the past decades several courses, and then face-to-face, blended, and more recently a lot of online courses on data management, quality management for the data centers, different tools to access and share data sets depending on the different types of data, courses on operational data products, data analysis and visualization. We know there are a lot of needs, especially for young scientists, on how to analyze and visualize their data. And so the ECOPs have been great, generating amazing courses for free, techniques of data acquisition, and also science policy interface. So nowadays we do have courses supported by Ocean Teacher that try to merge this gap. And just to end the end parts, because I know we are short in time. So there are, as Greg said, there are several online self-paced courses opportunities already open, so you can access the Ocean Teacher website. And you also can see the calendar through Ocean Expert official database. So, and the courses are announced. There are new courses coming and going every time. So if you follow those announcements and you follow the social media, you're going to see the new courses appearing. But the ones for data management, which are key for this webinar, is the Ocean Data Management course, which Greg just mentioned. But there's also the data analysis for Python for ECOPS, which is very hard to find Python courses, and it's still open for application. This one is going to be hosted for the Caribbean region, but these courses usually they are replicated across the different regions. I didn't mention that, but one of the differences between Ocean Teacher and other training platforms is that many of the content is generated by the regional experts. So the content is adapted to have a meaning in the region or to the local context. There's also the course for ODS and Ocean Info Hub, which is in a short, it's just blocked a little bit because we're doing some adaptation, but probably next week is going to be again available for enrollment. There is an amazing course for OBIS to publish and do quality management and to marine biodiversity data. You also have MONET and others. I also highlighted here in the side of my slide other training sources. So, okay, Ocean Teacher has done an amazing job in IOC training, but we also have other ocean communities, and so I invite you also to check out, so you can check these training opportunities in the Ocean City Hub website. You can also search. NOAA has a very good training material available, Copernicus for ocean data. There's a lot, the Marine Biodiversity Observation Network, and NASA also has a lot of very high quality training material and opportunities being advertised. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carol. It's truly impressive what OTG has been, first of all, achieved over the last decades, but also what you have at store now, what is already planned, and what opportunities already exist. And I think it's very timely to announce the self-paced data management course that will start tomorrow. It's fantastic, a very good opportunity. And of course, from our side, we'll be happy to continue and increasingly promote and make more visible all of the resources that OTGA is offering, and also help you identify where there may be needs in the future or particular opportunities, and work together. So it's an open call to action.
Bart. Yeah, just so I finalize that, I didn't invite, so anyone that is here and would like to develop a course with us, you can email Ocean Teacher at contact, and we can co-design together. The Ocean Decade is all about co-designing. So if you are an expert, even if you're not within one of the regional training centers, be welcome to contact us. There's more than 3,000, almost 11,000 people enrolled in the Ocean Teacher database, more than 300,000 300 courses, materials there. So we are more than welcome to help you.
Impressive. Thanks a lot. So an open call to action and to mobilize and grow capacity. It's really great to have you presented here. And so the communication lines are open. Please get in touch with Carol. You can also contact us if you would like to know more, and we'll obviously always put the opportunities on our resources toolkit under the training section. Then I would like to move, in the interest of time, to the next slot, which is going to present some insights an update from the community of practice, the examples from the primary actions, as well as decade implementing partners. And I'm going to ask, because we're running slightly behind time, to the colleagues to please stay within the allocated time so that we can end at 3 Central European time, because I know some of the panelists from the last panel need to leave at 3 sharp. So on that note, I'm going to introduce with great pleasure our colleague Pierluigi Buttigieg from the Alfred Wegener Institute for Marine Research, also seconded and supporting IODE project office involved in Ocean Data 2030, Ocean Info Hub, and the Ocean Data Information System. So Pierluigi, please. And I've left out some of your affiliations. I know you are also co-chair of the Decade Data Implementation or the Strategy Implementation Group. So too much to enumerate. So please, the floor is yours.
Great. All right. In the interest of time, I'll try to be terse, but get across the main ideas here. So over what we've been quite busy working with IODE and its network and its mature community. And again, this community of people who are affiliated with national initiatives and now federating research initiatives is one of the key hubs for building a digital ecosystem that's actually going to get us to bridge science and sustainable development. Let's not forget what the big picture is. So I'll go through a few of those ingredients. Ocean Data 2030, a decade program, which is a scaling up and out of work we've been doing in Ocean Info Hub and IODES, which many of you are familiar with, but which I'll also go through very quickly. So we all know it. We have a digital ecosystem. And, you know, this is not just a word. This is a technical term. It's a system of interconnected elements, systems, resources, you name it, people that are somehow sharing data or digital assets somewhere. It's a socio-technical system. It's important to understand we already have this. It's just not very mature. It's just not very functional. It's like we threw a bunch of strange animals on a planet and said, do something. The ecosystem hasn't established itself yet. There are no stable patterns. Well, there are some here and there. There are pockets of stability, but by and large, it hasn't matured as our Earth's ecosystems had matured into the biomes that we know today, the rainforests, the deserts, the global biosphere. So we need to help that maturation. The hard part is not the technology. We have more than enough technical capability right now to create a data space, a mature digital ecosystem where one initiative can talk to another, say, hey, what do you have? What can you do? The hard part is building the agreement so that everyone's doing it in a somewhat similar way, and we can actually achieve interoperability. This is in a broader context. It's not just something that the UN Decade has come up with, of course. Something is happening to our, what used to be one internet, which is now several internets. Something is happening. There's a fight for the future going on right now with the technology we use. There is a weakening of global multilateralism. Some states are creating their own internet pockets. There are new firewalls. We all know this. This also applies to the corporate sector. Depending on what kind of phone you have or what kind of product you buy, you're locked into certain digital ecosystems. And that is a threat to the original vision of the internet and, of course, how it has impacted human civilization. There's an increased desire for technological and data sovereignty. States are realizing how valuable and also how potentially threatening data can be. And the same is true for science in terms of whether they're willing to share data or not. And the same is true with people who are realizing how much it can hurt them. We've seen this with the indigenous data groups and people with the CARE principles. There's a lot of threats to communities that come from sharing data without understanding. So, of course, new regulatory frameworks and new kinds of competition are emerging, and that's not just in the private sector. There's new competition in science, too. There's new protectionism in science, too, that is going to sort of weaken our bridge to sustainable development. This is all feeding into this process of cyber balkanization or the rise of the splinternet. This is where we are right now. And indeed, it's getting harder to answer these questions. Right now, I don't think there's anybody in this room who can look across all the decade actions and say, okay, where is everybody? What are they doing? Who are they? What are their capacities? And can we work together? We can do that through workshops. We can do that through phone calls, sometimes a little bit here of an unstructured search, but we can't do that in a way that we should be doing that online. So when the decade started out, inside the original implementation plan that was released at the very beginning, there was an emphasis on distributed linked open data paradigms, which again is going back to the original vision of the internet to be able to link very different kinds of systems together, different implementations along common data formats and using a simple structure. Many technical folks know how to do that, but that's news to most science folks, and it's quite new to many corporations too. It's often done in the background quietly when you create a Google page or when you create a web page, it's done quietly. But if we do that consciously, we can start to actually pursue our main objectives. So all of these programs, all of these projects, I don't need to go through the slide, you all know it. We need our structure. We need to, as Peter Pisierson said earlier, we need to sort of structure that bit of the ocean internet a little bit more maturely so that it works for us. Because again, we have the greatest creation of humankind, linked information, with the complete knowledge of humanity online. But we need to use that. We need to harness that for our objectives. So since then, as Louis and others have said, the data and information strategy and the implementation plan coming up, they're all trying to drive that home to say, great, we have our goals, we have our scientific missions, our social development missions, our commercial missions around the ocean. How do we actually leverage this and address this exact environment that I've sketched out? And it's getting more refined. When we publish the information implementation plan, it's going to be more concrete about what your tech people in your actions can actually do with your technology to bridge into the system. So again, are we any closer? Well, those documents, the handshakes, the workshops, the webinars, the stuff we're doing, they won't alone cut it. They're essential, but they're not enough. So we need to actually build implementation agreements. We need to develop technology and interoperability and test it to make sure that it's actually working together. As Terry said, I keep bringing up this slide and I continue, and I always will. We need to build the plumbing system for all of these wonderful sparkly fountains that we desire. But we have some issues. The implementations are still siloed. I still can't access all of the actions data systems. I have to read piles of documentation, meet somebody, figure out where stuff is. And this is not a criticism. We're all here, right? We're all here because we tend to think of them as individual problems to be solved rather than taking a zoomed out view of that. We then therefore prioritize sparkly fountains because we need to show our funders, our stakeholders, the public, and those sparkly fountains in the terms of, let's say, pragmatism, which is a bit deceptive here because it may be pragmatic to the sparkly fountain, it's not pragmatic to the plumbing. So data leads also are typically not digitally fluent. Action leads, typically programs, etc. They're not typically digitally fluent. And again, that's no criticism, it's just where they're coming from. But then therefore, there's a sort of underrepresentation of the digital aspect in planning. And those data leads, those folks with the fluency, they're not sufficiently networked across actions. They don't really have a home. But of course, that's where we come into something like Ocean Data 2030. So this action, this program, it's been quiet for a while. Again, it's now coming up because we have had enough time to establish how we need to solve our problems locally. That's important. You can't just start with an overarching structure, but now it's time to bring that together. Bring together the plans, the strategies, implementation guidance, and we also have those implementations, the actual systems that are in play. So let's try to bring that together into a broader framework to help this conversation mature. So that's it. We have to do the hard part now. The technology is there. It's not a question of whose technology is better. It's about, can we bring the right people in the same forum to have this conversation about how to build the implementation bridges? And that's what Ocean Data 2030 will do. We have some early links to some of the programs, ODS, OBIS, a lot of the biodiversity folks, the digital twin folks. There are already inroads to those where conversations are happening, catalyzed by the DCO and other mechanisms. But we need all of those programs to send their data people somewhere where we can have these more technical conversations that align strategic goals so that we go from the high to the low level and things actually work. Right now, it's a very shapeable environment, right? We're starting out, but it's going to be shaped by your data people. So the people with the technical expertise or who want to acquire it, it's time to send them in there. We can shape it, but the priority is technical soundness, that this thing actually will work. It's that hub where we figure out the interoperation norms, not just in terms of saying the right acronyms, whether it's FAIR or CARE, or if I'm using this implementation or that won't matter. That will change in 5 years. It's a question of the agreements that are forged about how we run this part of the internet. And that's how our individual behavior adds up to a digital culture. Part of this is also to empower those digital leads to speak up. Many of them are quite quiet. They're not necessarily going to talk about the high-level goals of a program. They're more interested in solving a technical problem. But it's time to empower them also to be leaders in this strategically as much as anything else. That's how we're going to get to a data space type behavior and also approach those Vision 2030 goals. So that's it. I show this a lot, but that's exactly what we need. We need this robust and flexible interoperability where the system from one action can talk to the systems from other actions to assemble an answer to a question posed to an environment, a user experience that a particular user base is used to. You shouldn't have to hop around as a user. The systems should be talking to each other. If you have a one-stop shop, you need a global supply chain. And that's, again, what we need to build. We're lacking this. We can do bits and pieces. There are small oligolateral agreements, but we need to scale this if we're going to do this transformative agenda. And yes, it requires transformation on everyone's part. Because that same background, that same backend implementation has to furnish different users who will go inevitably to different systems in their language with a user experience that matches their own mode of thinking and working, that prioritizes certain data, uses certain services, etc. So we're all in this together, and Ocean Data 2030 will help us. The ODIS and OIH, I've presented on this many other times, but I'm trying to put it into the context here. What we've been doing with ODIS, and as Peter Pearsons has said, which has now helped to sort of restructure IODE to have this more technical basis and diagnostic ability across the ecosystem within IODE and its federation and others who are joining a wider federation. So the main objective there is to actually secure those digital supply chains. Can we actually create the first order plumbing? And we started just at the metadata level, and then we're going to deepen that through Ocean Data 2030. That's how it all works. So Ocean Info Hub is the project that allowed us to establish the ODIS Federation. So often that's how those two interoperate. Ocean Info Hub is our sparkly fountain, just one of the many sparkly fountains you can build on the ODIS plumbing. Think of it that way. And the whole idea is that through this project, we're bringing people together so that they don't have to mess with their own system too much, but they agree on how to ship things out to the supply chains, how to package them, how to put them in containers, so to speak, and how to actually build it. So during that 4-year project, the foundation of ODIS as a federation has been built, and then that federation will continue in time. It was established in 3 main regions so that we don't leave out the global south, so that it's very functional in this regard. Jan Bart, you're showing up because I should stop talking, right? Yeah, okay, then I'll do that very soon. So it's established in three main regions so we don't lose out the global south. That's also key. And again, it's using the internet to improve discovery, to improve access, to create this federation, and to help us target capacity development across the stakeholders. So again, it goes back to that message. We're using the internet to mature the ocean part of the internet. A number of partners have linked a number of systems, a number of European projects, a number of actions. There are inroads to WMO, to UN environment, and also scaling out beyond the ocean to other initiatives in other domains. The architecture is just how the internet works. We haven't created anything new. We're just helping people converge over established web architectural patterns. Code that looks like that builds graphs that are machine friendly. But the important thing is this: because we've done that, we know how our partners are sharing information. We can see it. It's now beyond just a document. It's an actual monitored diagnostic system, which is the foundation then of that internet. I'll skip ahead because I'm out of time, of course. But I think this is the important part. And I'll end with this slide then, Jan Bart. That because of what our federation has done, not just the IODE, but our federation in general, we now actually have a map of the partners that are in ODIS that, again, have their own independent implementations and systems, but are sharing information about what they can do, what data they have, what people are associated with what knowledge they have. And for the first time, we have a persistent datascape. So if you need to do a landscape analysis anymore, you don't have to start trawling the literature. We're trying to then connect it so that we actually mature as a community to build a data space. And again, this is just the snapshot one. We'll be releasing those snapshots as it goes. But what our great vision is that Ocean Data 2030 will help the actions become partners in the ODIS Federation, help run the Federation, co-govern it. It's open. Again, everyone is independent and runs their own system. But we actually mature things into a functional data space and something more than just the words on paper. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Luigi. It's very very important also in terms of building the digital ecosystem that we have. So I think maybe we should consider having a dedicated webinar specifically on Ocean Data 2030, Info Hub and ODIS in the coming period. And let's talk about that together. I know that also Lucy Scott is joining, so maybe you could put in the chat I know you showed it on the screen, some of the links to Ocean Data 2030 and ODES and InfoHub in particular, and how people can get involved. I think that would be very useful.
Sure.
So thanks a lot for sharing the updates there, and also to try and get the community involved. I think that's very important, that there is an awareness, but also contribution, and that as Ocean Info Hub develops, it's also used to the maximum extent in the decade. I would like to then move to the next speaker, and I'm very happy to introduce Bill Landing from the Florida State University, who is the Geotraces Data Management Committee co-chair. Please, Bill, the floor is yours.
All right.
I will just, for the speakers, 2 minutes before the end of your time slot, I will appear so that you have a cue and know that it's time to wrap up. Thanks.
All right. Should be able to see my slideshow. Yes.
All clear. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Bill Landing at Florida State University, and on behalf of Maite Maldonado at the University of British Columbia, we are co-chairs of the Geotraces Data Management Committee, and I want to just briefly describe the program and what we're doing with respect to data management. It's an international program. The core mission is to identify processes and quantify fluxes that control the distributions of key trace elements and isotopes in the ocean, and to establish the sensitivity of those distributions to changing environmental conditions. And that's a big mouthful, but why? Why do we care? And it's because trace elements, especially bioessential trace elements like iron, zinc, cadmium, manganese, nickel, copper, and cobalt, these are essential for phytoplankton growth and community development, and ultimately ecosystem function, and ultimately influence the global carbon cycle. Yet we have, prior to the start of this program, the amount of, for example, data on the distribution of dissolved iron in the ocean, there were a few hundred reliable measurements. And now as a result of this program, there are thousands. And of course, many people have heard that iron is this essential micronutrient, and we have to understand the distribution of iron and maybe even add iron to the ocean if we want to increase productivity. Some of them are toxic: mercury, lead, radioactive elements. Copper can be toxic at high concentrations. And then some of these trace elements and isotopes are indicators of ocean processes, like mixing a continental input versus hydrothermal input. So we look at neodymium isotopes, rare earth elements, beryllium and radium isotopes as far as flux indicators. So far we've got this little map of the cruises. The yellow ones are the ones that have been accomplished, and the red ones are planned. We've got 35 nations, 148 cruises completed. Some of these are what we call sections. They go across an entire ocean basin from surface to the bottom. Couple of thousand publications, and these data products that we have prepared, which I will be talking about today. So the data products are freely available online. They include trace metal data from all these stations and cruises, as well as the background hydrographic data, metadata, and including links to measurements on from genomics measurements. So we're collecting samples for genomics analysis to look at which communities are present, which ones are functioning in what ways, and our data product links to those genomics databases. So there's the website if you want to get into the data product. It's freely available from the geotraces.org website. And there's also an electronic digital atlas, I guess you would call it, where you can view images of the data. And we, of course, are eager to collaborate with ocean science communities and professionals. So when you want to compile data from scientists from 35 different nations into a single database, where the data are presented systematically using uniform parameter names, how do you do that? We have to ensure the consistency of the data generated by different labs in different nations. Those of you who might be involved in making temperature and salinity measurements in the ocean, we think we're pretty good at that. for people who make nutrient measurements in the ocean. It took a while to calibrate, intercalibrate the different nations by gathering nutrient standards that laboratories could analyze and that could be analyzed on the ship. A colleague of mine at Scripps developed alkalinity and total dissolved inorganic carbon standards that could be used to improve the consistency of the data. And we did the same thing for trace elements. We have active data management because we want to ensure that where our data are FAIR compliant. And we want to really enable visualization and or partial download of the data to make it easy for people to use the data. So this collaboration could be, the objectives that we are aiming to achieve could not be attained by a single lab or a single nation. And it really is an incredible collaboration, international collaboration of marine scientists from all over the world who have agreed to work together to make these measurements and to make the data freely available. And Elena Masper, she's our wizard at the International Project Office, and you can communicate with her if you have any questions that I can't answer. So the data management requires, this is the scheme that we've set up. This is where, this is on the left here, you see our organizational chart. We're a operated and funded by SCORE. We have a scientific steering committee, and the subcommittees include the data management committee, which I'm part of. There's also a very active standards and intercalibration subcommittee to make sure the data are reliable. We have national contacts. We have, of course, the geotraces researchers, which are producing all the great data. Some of that data goes to national data centers. We've also established what we call the GDAC, or Geotraces International Data Center, at the British Ocean Data Center, where the data is ultimately compiled to produce these data products. And just to reemphasize up here that these trace elements are, there's 35 grams of salt in every kilogram of seawater. And some of the things we're measuring are 10 to the minus 15 up to 10 to the minus 7 to 10 to the minus 15 moles per kilogram. They're extremely low concentrations. The measurements, collecting the samples is hard without introducing contamination. The analysis is hard. And so this is an incredible effort to generate this much data. All right, so the internal consistency of the data is important. We wanted to make sure that people were making reliable measurements, and so we made reference seawater samples available. Those are still available for method development and validation. We developed what we call the cookbook, which is recommended sampling and sample handling protocols. That's online and updated regularly. We have then developed what we consider pretty sophisticated and comprehensive intercalibration data reporting procedures that are expected to be followed on all of these geotraces cruises. And again, the Standards and Intercalibration Committee evaluates all the data to ensure reliability. And while they're doing that, they're also assisting all the investigators with data accuracy and reporting. So active data management is essential. We have the Data Assembly Center at British Ocean Data Center in the UK. They compile the data in an organized and accessible structure before we release one of these data products. The Data Management Committee sits kind of oversees all this activity. We interface with data generators. We recommend policies, standards, and formats. For example, we decided on which data flag scheme to use, and so we use the CDataNet data flag scheme. That was important. We have to establish which flags are going to be used to define the quality of the data. Most critically, we developed this portal called the Data for Ocean Research, or DOR portal. This is basically, data management is it's a database issue, and none of us, or I certainly am not a database person, but I recognize the need for this. And so the portal definitely creates the structure of the database that then makes the data all consistent and accessible and formatted in a uniform way. So that ensures easy access and visualization of the data. We have these intermediate data products. We release one about every 3 years. We've got the plan for 2 or 3 more. And we use WebODV, which is the visualization tool developed by Rainer Schlitzer at the Alfred Wegener Institute. And these are our tools that we really, to increase data fairness, the intermediate data products using WebODV and the DOOR are the tools that we use. Running a little short, so I'm going to skip through some of this. The DOOR portal allows you to register your data set. That's telling us you've got a data set you want us to look at or that you want to add to the data product. It generates data submission and intercalibration report templates. Anyone who's worked with multiple Excel files realizes this is a headache. We wanted people to submit their data in a uniform way. That speeds up the processing. They have to enter it gives them an opportunity to put in their metadata and to complete an intercalibration assessment. There are interfaces inside this DOOR portal for the scientists, but also for people like myself on the data management committee and for the standards and intercalibration committee to actually look at data. One of the key things was coming up with a parameter naming scheme, and this allows data from all these different countries and all these different investigators to be linked and to intercompared. So for example, dissolved iron, the concentration of dissolved iron in a sample that was collected in a bottle lowered from the ship. All right, that's a parameter name. And in my particular data set, I get assigned this arbitrary barcode, and my data for dissolved iron collected this way will then be trackable all the way from data registration, submission, to release in an intermediate data product. The key is to avoid free text entries, because you could imagine people could call dissolved iron lots of different names. We make them use the same name. And PIs are identified using their ORC IDs. It's easy for researchers to select parameter names. We have a list of these using drop-down menus. It's about 3,000 names. And it improves the efficiency of data product creation. It also links the data generators with their papers. This is important to acknowledge the people who do the work. So every parameter, for example, from this cruise, GP16 in Eastern Tropical South Pacific, all the papers that report dissolved iron collected in this way are listed and available and updated automatically. So finally, getting towards the end, you can download the database, the intermediate data products several ways. There's a full package download. There's online subsetting and extraction, online analysis and visualization, and all of these links to all of this stuff are available on the GeoTraces website. And I'll just stop with that. There's a link to the international geotraces.org, and there's email for Elena at the IPO. And I'll stop there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bill. It's really impressive. And as for the Ocean Data 2030 program, 10 minutes really does not do justice to the wealth of knowledge and expertise that has been gained over the many decades and years. And I think it's a very nice example of how a major science program is underpinned by robust data collection and sharing, data management procedures and practices, and an exemplar really for others who want to establish a new program or are already in a program but want to strengthen their data collection management and sharing practices. So I think, again, much as the ocean data one, maybe we should think of how we can. We have a case study already on the DCO website, but I think we can zoom in a bit more on your experience in the data management side, and also the link with the British Oceanographic Data Center and how it's interlinked with IODE as well is very strong and very interesting. So thanks a lot. You have already.
Let me just, can I just add that one of the reasons to partner with the BODC is that they promise that the data will be stored forever. So we'll see.
Yes, it's yeah, it's an offer that you cannot refuse. But very good, and we are working very closely as well with BODC. So it's a great expertise group there as well. Okay, thanks a lot. You already shared the link, and I think also Una put it in the chat. If people want to know more, and I think we can share your presentation as well. I think it was a request from somebody in the chat, so we'll happily do that afterwards, and people can get in touch with the project office. So fantastic. Thanks a lot. And stay with us a little bit. If there are questions for Bill, then please ask in the chat, and we'll have an opportunity to communicate. On that note, I would like to move to the third program that we would like to bring to your attention. This is the World Ocean Database Program. And it's my pleasure to introduce Hernan Garcia from the National Oceanographic Administration and Atmospheric Administration in the US. Please, also a very long-standing program. Please, Hernan, the floor is yours.
Can you see my slide?
We can see your slide, and now it's in presenters mode, but you should probably press the 3 small dots under the slide, because we see your presenter mode. So if you go to the right, to the 3 dots.
Oh, I see. Maybe I could go, let's see. How about that?
No, it's still the same. But if you...
Well, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can enable your video if you like.
Okay. Yeah, my camera just stopped working. So, okay. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but if you just go to display settings up there, then you can duplicate slideshow. Then we see it full screen.
Is that better?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kirsten.
Kirsten.
Okay. So I wanted to tell a little bit about the World Ocean Database Program under the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. This is a work that is conducted at NOAA, National Center for Environmental Information, and it's a large group of people that are involved in trying to put this together. This work, it is also part of the IODEs, which has been a great supporter of this program, and of course the World Data System. Okay, for those of you who might not be familiar with the World Ocean Database, it is the world's largest fair and quality control global oceanographic profile database. It contains data from the 1700s to present. It has global coverage and includes a whole host of measuring instruments and variables. Most of them are essential ocean variables. And all of this data is openly available to the research community. So what WD does is takes this ecosystem of data, which is in non-interoperable formats. Imagine data that was collected in 1945 or 1972. Each one is like a box of chocolate. Each one is a different format. And so what we do is put all that data together into a analysis-ready format, which is quality control. And so the user can go and select and dice the data however they want. And then put the data in the cloud, which is what we're working at the moment, so that it can be connected to other global interoperable networks like IODE, Ocean Info Hub, or others like Blue Cloud 26. So under the hood, really, is that the reality is that most of the data that is globally distributed is really in different formats. So a user wanting to use the global data, for example, for I don't know, X essential ocean variable will have to visit n number of places, download the data, write a program to read the data and convert it into a uniform format. Imagine doing that with terabytes of data. So what WD does is through international data sharing, we provide an integrated way to analyze the data from which anybody can go and use the data for any type of products. For research, for example, we can formulate regional climatologies at 1/10 of a degree or create data products. For example, here is a global ocean heat content for the past 60 years, which is obviously an important element of ocean warming and climate change. So I would like to put all the value of this effort as a global community interest, in that, you know, we are all connected by one ocean, which has finite resources, and that is subjected to significant man-made climate change impacts. And those impacts have no geopolitical boundaries. And what we really need is data to implement climate response, or at least a mitigation strategy for achieving a sustainable ocean. At the moment, we don't have the access to the data in a way that it can be used on demand. So the WD has been in place for over 20 years and has always been thought as a project by and for all countries to facilitate global ocean data sharing, aggregation, and access in a fair, compliant mode. And again, I would like to extend my gratitude to IODE, who has played a fundamental role since from its beginning. The database is really a reliable, analysis-ready data tool for oceanographic climate model. And we invite everybody to participate in evolving it as a tool for everybody. The data that are included in the World Database are all archived at NOAA NCI, which also guarantees that the data will be archived forever. So we have that permanent long-term archive here in the United States. The WD and World Ocean Atlas, we have versions that we release every 4 years. And the latest one, the 2023 version, is planned to be released hopefully by the end of this month, or that's what we hope. Anyways, I wanted to end up with that the WD is really a research quality tool by and for all countries with equity. Everybody can come, use the data, share the data, and it benefits all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hernan. Much appreciated and very impressive. So again, if anybody has any questions to Hernan or wants to know more, please, your opportunity is to connect with Hernan in the chat and follow up. And we will move straight to Mark from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. Will present on another program that is perhaps more in development, but also share some reflections on what FAO is doing in relation to ocean coastal human activities, data collection and sharing. And that also shows a little bit the different perspectives from the community that we are catering for. So thanks a lot, Hernan, and Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-Bart. Do you hear me? Do you see my slide?
Yes, perfect.
Great. So I'm starting. Yeah, my presentation is about this decade action. The title is a bit long, Digital Innovation Hand in Hand with Fisheries and Ecosystems, Scientific Monitoring. Short title could be the FAO Fisheries and Environmental Atlas. And it's a program which we progress according to the priorities and available funds. There are parts very well advanced, as you can see in my presentation, and others just initiated. I will focus on presenting status and how it matches the expectations of Challenge 8 group, which I'm a member of, for a comprehensive digital representation of the ocean. And let me associate and credit here my colleagues who contributed to this presentation. So let me start by highlighting this very noble FAO mission, which is to ensure food for all and to eliminate hunger. As aquatic food systems, fisheries and aquaculture contribute substantially to this objective, and FAO's Blue Transformation fosters action to increase production while ensuring sustainable environmentability. Let me highlight here that fighting hunger and ensuring sustainable fisheries are particularly important societal goals, and of particular relevance to my speech today are these SDG 2, zero hunger, and SDG 14, life below water goals of the SDGs. I believe the audience is here familiar about goal 14, but sometimes indeed the targets are not so well known. So on SDG 14, FAO is custodian to 4 targets, which are outlined in red here at the top, on sustainable use of marine living resources. And it also contributes to others, such as 14.5, conserve marine areas, or 14A, increase science research technology. This presentation is quite relevant to this one. And 14C, which is implement international law. My presentation will focus on how this decade action supports the target effective management to restore fish stocks and its indicator 1441. What is the scope of intervention? SDG 1441, proportion of fish stock within sustainable biological level, is a relatively complex indicator, which essentially requires time series of catch data, effort data if possible, and analytical capacities for stock assessment. Also noting that catch data are an essential indicator of quantity of available aquatic food. As a knowledge organization, FAO can influence and intervene on the whole data value chain, and I will develop from the left to the right and from data to policy. Here, we are responding to capacity building needs of our members at the level of field data collection and national fisheries information systems. We are also enabling members to report on national indicator SDG 1441. We are supporting regional fishery bodies with their regional databases in support to the assessment of shared stocks. We are compiling global inventories of stocks and fisheries, and also database of catch and effort. And with this global knowledge, we eventually publish the state of stocks in our flagship publication, State of Food of Fisheries and Aquaculture. Thus, FAO can intervene at all levels of the value chain, from the field data collection to the science to policy messages. FAO works with its national members for their reporting obligations and statistics, but as well as through global partnership bodies. Regional fishery bodies are members of the Coordinating Working Party on Fishery Statistics, which is a standard-setting body for fishery statistics, and also are part of the development of statistical fishery standards. They are also members of FIRMS, the Fisheries and Resource Monitoring System, for sharing information on status and trends of fishery stocks. We have also National Research Institute here, partners in FIRMS. We have also ASFA, which is a partnership for collecting literature. There are UN partners in it, and there are also many national libraries. FAO thus works with a broad community of practice and helps develop their capacities. And for example, to this end, we have partnerships with national technology institutes, which lead digital innovation and developed platforms such as D4Science, or also with Global Fishing Watch on AAS. And these are being tailored to serve the needs of our community of practice. That's how we've developed the Fisheries Atlas under the Blue Cloud project. So let me take for fair data flow an example we developed, a flagship example, I would say, for the firm's tuna atlas. So in a relatively data-rich context, because the 5 tuna regional fishery management organizations around the world are relatively data-rich, we have operationalized the fair data flow to enable easy and sustainable updates of catch and effort data and for the long term. This has involved mobilizing in a coordinated manner the partnership I mentioned earlier, so to apply a standardized methodology built on international norms, including IT data format standards, semantic standards of the CWP, library standards, and this was orchestrated within the Fisheries Atlas of the D4Science IT platform. This objective, I have to say, took quite a long time, around 7 years altogether, but we have now a solid and sustainable data flow based on international standards and also data sharing agreements. As a custodian agency, FAO has an important mandate to build capacities of countries, so to enable them to monitor and report on their indicators. And so within the FAO e-learning academy, which today disseminates about 30 courses on fisheries and aquaculture, we've developed an e-learning course on SDG 1441 and delivered it during the pandemic through a series of language and region-specific online workshops. As part of this course, we included a virtual hands-on component, which is a virtual research environment entitled the Stock Monitoring Tool. This has been set up within the iMarine Cloud platform, which allows trainees to practice and run stock assessment methods, exchange within the shared space, and get also help desk support from expert trainers. Another VRE has been 1 year ago set up for regional training workshops on the new SOFIA transparent assessment framework using an online Air Studio, hosting a certain algorithm called SRA+. And at this state, more than 1,000 participants registered to the VREs, which very much helped to roll out the courses. We've received very positive testimonies. This is one here. Sorry. We make available through these value chain atlases in support to science. And the one we have developed and which materialized with the FIMS Global Tuna Atlas, which provides harmonized catch statistics in support to science through an array of standard formats, including a nice map viewer. But then through collaborations with other regional fishery bodies, here we can see WCAFC, Western Central Atlantic Fisheries Commission. This atlas and its underlying database is used to support assessment of shared stocks. A national data submission also follows FAIR principle here. And this FAIR approach is reinforced where countries ask our support to deploy the FAO Calypso software for their national fishery information system platform. So this WCAFIS Regional Atlas not only integrates catch and effort statistics, as I said before, but also the firm's fact sheets that inform on the status of regional stocks. And with this integration capacity, this atlas is also used as a science to policy interface by managers and policymakers who seek information. Likewise, at global level, this FIMS atlas plays a similar role with a diversity of products. For example, the map viewer communicates our knowledge on the world fish stocks. by disseminating the contents of a global record of stocks and fisheries. It's a global repository of uniquely identified stocks and fisheries collated through fair processes as well. So our current move is also to make this firm's dissemination system the companion of policy messages at global scale disseminated through our flagship SOFIA publication. What I presented until now concerns the data collection process, which formally exists, but we all know that a lot of local knowledge remain in drawers. So this is where we believe that initiatives such as ASFA can dig up such hidden knowledge by enabling libraries of a national institute to identify and publish grey literature. Last year, we proceeded with CIFDEC, and the results of a project are displayed here, where we had 8 libraries. You can see the little dots here of the cities where they are located for 4 Southeastern Asian countries, produced about 1,000 records of scientific literature or data sets related to fish stocks, which were not previously available. So with this type of testimony from the participants, that our research studies will be cited not just locally, but also internationally. So we are now reaching out to assess the value of this work in support to national indicator SDG 1441. That's my last slide. So just be patient. Our UN declaration also envisages, as I mentioned at the beginning, the ecosystem dimension. We have not progressed so much as on fisheries. However, FAO's Blue Transformation fostered action to mainstream biodiversity in fisheries. So this dimension is coming next. But also, I can say that with our Decade Action Partner, we already touched upon these topics, such as prediction of invasion of pufferfish in the Mediterranean. Or we have also this database on vulnerable marine ecosystems developed with deep seas RFMOs, where VMEs can maybe candidate for reporting as other effective conservation measures, the OECMs in marine fisheries, under Target 3 of the just approved Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. That's thank you for your attention, and I leave you this with slide of AAS computation, where we are progressing as well, in addition to the others already mentioned. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mark. It's a beautiful slide to end with, and we saw a few nice artistic visuals throughout. But I'm very grateful for your time and sharing some insights on the different components that are at various levels of maturity, as you say, in development, some a bit more developed through European and other projects and funding. So it's putting the pieces in the puzzle together, but it's also interesting to look at maybe a different perspective from a UN organization working on different kinds of data and information. Socioeconomic data is often a bottleneck in a lot of advice for management and policy. We know that from experience, that when you ask what data are you looking for, often the most users are looking to complement their environmental data sets with socioeconomic data. So the power of integrating these different data types is very important. And thanks for sharing those reflections. And together with the other programs, we will be happy from the DCO side to work with you to try and identify opportunities to connect with other decade actions, developing synergies, but also in terms of resource mobilizations where we see opportunities. We will be happy to work with you to bring them to your attention and also to secure some additional support and funding for developing all of these different components. Going back to the first program that we discussed, Ocean Data 2030, I think there's still a lot of scope for improvement as well, and work that needs to be done. The program is there, but resources is a limiting factor. So if we can help with that, we're happy to do so. Okay, thank you, Mark. And please, if you have a few more minutes to stay with us and see if there are any questions, please do. And we will share all the links, obviously, and also the recording in the presentation. As I mentioned in the chat, we are running slightly behind schedule. As Willy Wonka once said, there is so much time and so little to say. And that goes for this particular webinar and this topic for sure. So we'll be keen to follow up on some more specific and dedicated webinars in the future. Also, if you want to point out where your interests and needs are, then we'll be happy to take that forward. We will continue, as I mentioned in the chat. So those of you who have to leave, we perfectly understand, but we are making a recording. So we are going to continue with the program, and we are grateful for the last speakers that they are willing to stay with us to share their reflections from the Decade Implementing Partner side. We will make available the recording afterwards, obviously, so that you can all be fully informed. So I think we have 10-15 minutes more, and then we will close down. And I'm very happy to give the floor to one of our, well, I will ask all of the representatives from the Decade Implementing Partners to open their camera and to join. So we have Vicente Fernandez representing the EMOTNet Secretariat. There was Sergio Britton from Euroocean, and Wan Fangfang from the Chinese National Marine Data Information Service. So I'm going to give the floor first to Sergio, because I know that you have also other meetings and you're a bit under time pressure, and we're very grateful that you could join us, because, I mean, Euroocean deals with a lot of different activities, very active on the ocean literacy side, but also ocean observing somewhere, connecting the dots, and also has these info bases, which are quite interesting for people. So we span a very broad spectrum. So please, Sergio, if you...
Thank you, Jan Bart, and thank you very much for the invitation to be present here. It has been really rewarding to listen to all the colleagues and understand what's going on, and so much has been done by everyone. So thank you for this opportunity. I'll just spend a couple of minutes. I know I'm between you and lunch, or sort of. So I'll just use a couple of minutes to speak a bit about Euroocean, and maybe 1 minute to share with you my thoughts about everything that I've just listened during this morning. So Euroocean is a Decade Implementing Partner, and thus holds a responsibility in advancing the goals of the UN Ocean Decade. Euroocean's involvement in the Ocean Decade is crucial given its role as a center for ocean science and technology information. With a wealth of experience and a broad network of members, Euroocean can contribute significantly to Decade's objectives through its mission, fostering information exchange, interaction, and innovation among its network members, the ocean community, and broader society. Euroocean's expertise can enhance the scientific knowledge through translating it to a common and accessible language for policymakers, ocean community, and the broader public. Euroocean is organizing and participating in several initiatives and projects that contribute to the Decade objectives and to the Ocean Data Sharing Coordination Office. Some of these initiatives are the Mario Ruivo Memorial Lecture, which is organized together with IOC UNESCO, aimed at young researchers globally. We are member of the Stakeholders Forum of the Portuguese Committee for the Ocean Decade. We have the leadership of communication and dissemination initiatives in several ocean science projects, with special emphasis to ocean observation, citizen science, and ocean literacy projects, such as the EU initiative EU for Ocean, Nautilus, or the High Arctic Ocean Observation Project. We are involved in the development of capacity building initiatives that contribute for the Ocean Decade, such as summer schools, science to policy events, webinars, and workshops. And last but not least, as you rightly put it, Euroocean is the curator of substantial and high quality information on European marine research infrastructures and initiatives, some of which is available to the Ocean Info Hub. So this has been a very rewarding experience for us working with you guys in the Ocean Info Hub project. It gave us the opportunity to review our databases, to improve them, and there were several challenges associated with that. And now we are very happy for having contributed to this initiative, but also it allowed us to open up even more our data. So our data was already available to different platforms, but owing to the APIs that we developed based on the technology that was developed by the Ocean Info Hub, now our data is virtually available to anyone willing to use it. Of course, observe the required data licenses, which are always very much important to acknowledge the scientists and the data providers. Having said this, and making a short reflection on what has been done. So for me, I mean, this is amazing what is being done here. We are putting a lot of data together to unprecedented levels. I would highlight the word trusted internet of ocean data, as Peter Pieces called it, as an attribute. And the attribute I'd like to emphasize is trusted. We are going to build a huge value chain on top of this, let me call it, without a better word, this network of data stores, something like that. We are going to build a huge value chain. We are going to use it. Our systems, our applications, other solutions will be developed on top of this. And so trust seems to me a very, very important attribute when it comes to, and so in this vein, I think that at the appropriate forums concerning architecture and governance, we should think or start thinking, if we have not thought about that yet, but at least enhance what is related to data integrity and data availability, without which we cannot have trust. We are building such a complex thing that will be so important for our decisions in the future and for everything that we are planning, and that we are not even thinking about it, that for me, trust is the next step. We need to think better about integrity, about availability. We need to make sure that data is not either accidentally or intentionally changed along the process from one data source to whatever application on the other side of the world. And so I think we need to think carefully about this, but also availability. We will be making decisions, we'll be creating habits, we'll be creating huge dependencies on all this thing that we are creating here. So we need insurances that what we need is available when we need it. Otherwise, there is no trust, there is no credibility. So my thoughts go to trust, integrity, and availability. And I think we have a lot to think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sergio, and I couldn't agree more. I think also one of the key strategic objectives of the data and information strategy is about building trust across the marine knowledge value chain, about traceability, transparency, and clear provenance of the data. I think these are key, absolutely agree. So let's work on that together. And that's also why I'm very happy with the construct of having the ocean observing, data management, and processing community very much tightly linked to each other. Okay, wonderful. Then maybe going from Europe, maybe to the other side, to one of the sides is our colleague Juan Fang from the National Marine Data Information Service. Please, can I give you the floor to share a few reflections?
Thank you very much, Jan-Bart, for inviting me to this great webinar. And it's very informative, and it's amazing to see that the DCO has achieved so much in such a short time since our establishment. It's very impressive. And if I may, I would like to follow the agenda to maybe to answer some of the works, or to share some of the works of my institute as a DIP. So first, maybe a lot of our colleagues do not familiar with my institute. I come from the National Marine Data and Information Service, and this is a research institute directly under the Ministry of Natural Resources. And the main function of NMDS is to manage the national marine data and information resources, to provide information and technical support to a wide range of fields, such as marine economic development, marine resource management, marine spatial planning, marine ecological protection as restoration, sea level rise, prediction and assessment, and of course, most important, data sharing at international and regional level. And we have been actively involving in ocean cooperation, especially the data sharing and information exchange. We are now running 9 cooperative centers or nodes within the framework of IOC or WMO. For example, the WMO IOC Center for Marine Meteorological and Ocean Climate Data Center, the China Argo Data Center, Odin Westpac, although suspended for now, and also the IOC OTGA Training Center. We all have listened the introduction during this webinar. And as the DIP, which was approved, I think it's in June last year, we have been working hard to participate in establishing the global ocean digital ecosystem in several ways, maybe. For example, for the talent or expertise, we have, Dr. Sun Miao as volunteer in your office now, and also have expert in the decade data and information strategy implementation work group. And also we are, with the great help from the OIH project and the IODE, last October, we successfully established our node on ODS, and we have realized the interoperation with other nodes in this great network. So this maybe some work we have done to support the DCO, I think, and support the establishment of the ocean digital ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Juan. And I very much appreciate the openness and the collaborative spirit of the colleagues of NMDIS. It's been really a pleasure, and also having your colleague supporting us. It's been very, very useful and appreciated. And I do think that we speak the same language and have the same understanding. It allows us to work together across the globe, and that's really the spirit that we need to take this digital ecosystem forward. So wonderful and much appreciated. So I'm going to move to Vicente for a quick final round of intervention, and then we're going to close down. Thanks a lot, Vicente. Please.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jean-Bart, for inviting me and representing InvotNet here. Well, I have the pleasure to be the last speaker, and the challenge of because you have heard so many interesting things that is difficult. So I join first the congratulations to the big work of the DCO, of the data sharing, which is very, very important. So InvotNet, the European Marine Observation and Data Network, for those of you who are not familiar, in a nutshell, is a European in situ data and data products operational service sustained by the European Commission, so it's long-term funding. And the main focus here is to integrate and collect in situ marine environmental data for different sources of information around Europe, and make them available to share in an open way to end users with standards and the metadata and data interoperable with European international standards. This data and these data products are going to serve a different range of users, from researchers, policies, environmental regulations, or the blue economy. So the philosophy is collect once and use several times. And another focus then is the interoperability. So one action of the DIP, InvotNet's DIP since 2023, is to contribute to this digital data ecosystem that has been mentioned today, because as the data is interoperable, it's already being ingested by other global data initiatives as GEOS or the Ocean Info Hub. So the InvotNet data catalog is already available for the global initiatives. So this is one of the another focus, this focus on interoperability of the data. Another contribution to the digital ecosystem is that in Europe, IMONET, together with other partners as Copernicus, is building the public European infrastructure for a digital representation of the ocean, which will be main contribution to this digital, to the Challenge 8, the digital representation of the ocean. Then IMONET as a network of more than 120 organizations in Europe can help DCO to spread and multiply the messages across the European community. Have been mentioned today that we need people, we need trained data managers, we need experts. So IMONET networks can help the DCO in this respect to multiply these messages. Also, I forgot to mention that IMONET is an example at European, at regional scale of how this data sharing functions across different political borders around different nations, speaking different languages. This has been highlighted that is can be a barrier. And from IMONET, we have this experience of collecting data across different actors with different formats, with speaking different languages. That is, I think it's important to showcase as a best practice. And finally, would mention, as Sergio mentioned already from Eurasia, the availability. Of course, the trust is very important. IMONET is also putting a lot of attention to data quality and data trust. And data availability. We are aware that many observations are there, but they are not still being shared. We know some geographical gaps. And I think at global level, DCO can help to unlock this data by fostering this fairness of data, convincing some regions that it's important to share data because it's important for all the Ocean Decade objectives. And yes, this data availability and the data gaps, which are being defined in the DCO and also by IMONET. So I think these are mainly the main topics I wanted to touch upon. So thanks, and I'm open to questions. Or I don't know if we have time, but we are happy to share our experience for IMONET with the global community.
Excellent. Many thanks, Vicente. And you touch upon a few very interesting additional concepts and developments. The digital twin. In Europe, there is a strong drive to develop digital twins, but in many regions across the world, that's the case. We have the DITO, Digital Twins of the Ocean program under the decade that's trying to collect all this collective drive towards the advancing the digital twin application capacities and share that also across the different actions and regions. So that's going to be very interesting. And also in the Challenge 8 that you mentioned, if we are looking to develop this comprehensive representation of the ocean, bringing in these digital twins will be very, very interesting and useful. I think we are going to close down, and I would like to thank especially you, Juan, for staying up late, and many of the other speakers for skipping on their lunch or postponing it, and also for those who managed to stay on a little bit longer. What I'm going to ask everybody is to switch on the cameras for those of you who are willing to do so and are still here, so that we can have a group picture. Since some of the people already left, it will make it easier for our colleagues to take a snapshot, because otherwise it's so many screens, but it would be nice to see you also for a little moment before we switch off. Good to see some familiar faces. Very nice. And I don't know, Peter, maybe if you want to say a few final words before we close down while people switch on their cameras for the final picture.
Thank you, Jan Bart. Well, I think we've heard a lot of interesting presentations. I also heard a lot of convergence into the concept of a global data ecosystem and the need for such a system. I think Sergio was one of the persons who said there's still a lot of data out there that is not shared. We heard also about building trust. And I think the decade can provide an excellent framework to build on that trust and to convince all those who hold data to make them available. And also the decade can share the need expressed by a lot of users, especially, for example, in the Global South, who find it difficult to access the data. I mean, IODE through ODISCAT tried to sort of find out how many data sources are there within the mandate, just in the mandate of IOC, and we found over 4,000. So that's just that's a huge forest, and most users can no longer find their way in that forest. So I think the efforts within the decade, with the assistance from FAO, from IOC, and that's IODE and others, hopefully we can provide a bit of a path through that forest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for wrapping up. We fully agreed. So thanks a lot for joining us, for the speakers to present. We'll disseminate all the information and look forward in the coming years to work together to support you and make this happen. Thank you so much. Take care.